In the vast South China Sea, a region dotted with hundreds of islands and reefs, tensions simmer just beneath the surface. Scarborough Shoal, a tiny uninhabited reef, has become the flashpoint of a dangerous international standoff, drawing the eyes of the world to this remote corner of Asia. Both the Philippines and China claim this territory, turning a few rocks into a symbol of power, resources, and national pride. For both nations, control over Scarborough Shoal is about more than geography. It's about asserting their place on the world stage. The waters here are vital for fishing and global trade, with trillions in goods passing through each year. For local communities, these waters are a lifeline, providing food and income for thousands of families. Any conflict threatens not just the region, but the global economy. Disruption here could send shockwaves through supply chains, affecting everything from electronics to energy. Tensions have escalated. Chinese ships have used water cannons on Philippine vessels, and confrontations at sea are becoming more frequent and more dangerous. Near collisions risk sparking a wider crisis, where a single miscalculation could ignite open conflict between nations. China claims nearly the entire South China Sea, using its so-called nine-dash line to justify its sweeping territorial ambitions. Meanwhile, the Philippines fights to protect its sovereignty and the livelihoods of its fishermen, who depend on these waters for survival. The U.S., a longtime ally of the Philippines, has pledged support, viewing China's actions as a threat to international law and freedom of navigation. American warships regularly patrol these waters, signaling their commitment to keeping sea lanes open. A single incident at Scarborough Shoal could spiral into a major conflict, drawing in world powers and potentially destabilizing the entire Indo-Pacific region. This is more than a local dispute. It's a test of international rules and the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. The outcome could set precedents for how similar disputes are handled worldwide. The actions of the Philippines, China, and the U.S. in the coming months could shape the region's future for decades, influencing peace, stability, and prosperity far beyond these waters. That's why the world is watching Scarborough Shoal so closely, with journalists, diplomats, and military strategists all keeping a close eye on every development. The fate of this small reef could have global consequences, reminding us that even the most remote places can shape the course of history. At the heart of this crisis stands U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has taken a firm stance in support of the Philippines. Rubio has condemned China's aggressive behavior, calling it a threat to regional stability and international law. He's publicly challenged China's moves, including its plan to declare Scarborough Shoal a nature reserve, a move he calls an illegal territorial grab. Rubio's strategy is to rally international support and put diplomatic pressure on China before the situation escalates. Beyond words, he's pushed for increased U.S.-Philippines defense cooperation and funding, helping modernize the Philippine Coast Guard and military. This sends a message to Southeast Asia. The U.S. stands with its allies against intimidation. For smaller nations, America's clear support reassures them that they're not alone. The goal: a free and open Indo-Pacific, where no country can bully its neighbors. Scarborough Shoal may look insignificant, but its value is immense. It sits within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, providing vital fishing grounds for generations. Its location is strategic. Control means projecting military power over key shipping lanes. For China, it's a step toward dominating the South China Sea. For the Philippines, it's a matter of national security. The South China Sea sees over $3 trillion in trade annually. Any conflict here could disrupt global commerce. The area may also hold valuable oil and gas reserves, raising the stakes even higher. Scarborough Shoal is more than rocks. It's a symbol of sovereignty and a key piece in a larger strategic puzzle. The fight here is about the future of the region and the rules that govern it. It's a test of international law versus might makes right. The outcome will shape peace and stability across the Indo-Pacific. The Scarborough Shoal dispute has simmered for decades, rooted in overlapping territorial claims and a long history of maritime tensions, but things escalated dramatically in 2012, drawing global attention to this remote stretch of sea. That year, a tense standoff between Philippine and Chinese ships unfolded, lasting weeks and capturing headlines. It ended with China seizing de facto control of the shoal, shifting the balance of power in the region. Filipino fishermen, who had relied on these waters for generations, suddenly found themselves blocked from their traditional fishing grounds. This fueled outrage and protests in Manila, as livelihoods were threatened and national pride was wounded. In response, the Philippines turned to international law, filing a landmark case at The Hague in 2013, seeking to challenge China's sweeping claims and defend its own rights under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. In 2016, the arbitral tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in favor of the Philippines, declaring China's claims baseless and affirming Filipino rights to the waters. The decision was hailed as a major victory for international law and smaller nations. However, China rejected the ruling outright, maintaining its presence and intensifying patrols around the shoal. The situation on the water remained tense, with frequent encounters between rival vessels. This created a fundamental clash. On one side, the Philippines and its allies demand a rules-based order. On the other, China asserts its claims by force, unwilling to compromise. The legal victory gave Manila the moral high ground and international support. But China's refusal to comply has kept tensions high, with no clear resolution in sight. The standoff has become a contest between the principles of international law and the realities of raw power, with both sides unwilling to yield. Each side is determined not to back down, and the stakes for regional stability could not be higher. The world is left watching, hoping for a peaceful solution, as diplomats and leaders urge restraint and dialogue. But the risk of escalation remains ever present, casting a long shadow over the South China Sea and the future of international order. Tensions at Scarborough Shoal have erupted into direct confrontations. Chinese Coast Guard ships have fired high-pressure water cannons at Philippine vessels, risking serious injury and damage. Near collisions between Chinese and Philippine ships could trigger the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, risking wider conflict. The Philippines has responded by strengthening alliances and conducting joint naval drills with partners like Australia and Canada. These exercises send a clear message. The Philippines is not alone. China continues aggressive patrols, claiming to defend its territory, while the Philippines insists it's upholding international law. Each incident increases the risk of miscalculation. The divide between the two countries' narratives is stark. Every water cannon blast and close call brings the region closer to crisis. The world watches, hoping for restraint. In a surprise move that caught many off guard, China announced sweeping plans to designate Scarborough Shoal as a national nature reserve, promising to protect its unique marine ecosystem and biodiversity. On the surface, the initiative appears to be about environmental conservation, but analysts and officials in Manila quickly recognized it as a calculated strategy, a clever ploy to reinforce and legitimize China's territorial claim over the disputed waters. The Philippines immediately condemned the plan as illegal, arguing it blatantly violates international law and the landmark 2016 arbitral ruling that rejected China's expansive claims in the South China Sea. By framing its actions as environmental stewardship, China seeks international legitimacy while effectively excluding Filipino fishermen and asserting control over the area's resources. This is a textbook example of a gray zone tactic, using non-military, seemingly peaceful means to achieve strategic and territorial goals without open conflict. The response from Manila and Washington is critical. If their pushback is weak or inconsistent, it could embolden China to use similar tactics elsewhere in the region, further destabilizing the South China Sea. U.S. Secretary Rubio strongly condemned the plan, calling it a coercive attempt to advance China's interests under the guise of environmental protection. In response, China accused the U.S. of interfering and sowing discord, underscoring the intense diplomatic battle now unfolding between the two powers. Around the world, many see through the environmental pretext, recognizing the move as part of a broader contest for influence and control in the region. The real fight here is not just about conservation, but about territory, power, and who gets to set the rules in one of the world's most contested maritime regions. The outcome of this standoff will set a crucial precedent for how future maritime disputes are handled, not just in the South China Sea, but around the globe. Despite relentless pressure, the Philippines refuses to back down. Manila's strategy, transparency and diplomacy, publicly exposing China's aggressive actions to shape the global narrative. The Philippines stands firm on the 2016 arbitral ruling, reminding the world it has international law on its side. Manila files diplomatic protests and maintains the legal high ground. Militarily, the Philippines deepens alliances, especially with the U.S., increasing joint patrols and access to bases. The goal: credible defense and deterrence, not war. National pride fuels public support for a firm stance. For Filipinos, this is about dignity and sovereignty. The government's resolve is matched by its people's determination. The U.S.-Philippines alliance is a cornerstone of Indo-Pacific security. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty obligates both nations to defend each other if attacked. In 2023, the U.S. clarified that this commitment covers Philippine Coast Guard vessels in the South China Sea, a major win for Manila. This raises the stakes for China's gray zone tactics, making any attack riskier. U.S. support includes hundreds of millions in aid to modernize the Philippine military and Coast Guard. Congress backs continued funding, exempting the Philippines from aid freezes. Joint patrols and exercises show the alliance in action, not just words. U.S. presence in contested waters signals unity and deterrence. This ironclad partnership gives the Philippines confidence to defend its rights. Together they stand firm against coercion. The Scarborough Shoal standoff has global implications. At stake, whether international law will be respected or if might makes right. If China can ignore legal rulings and seize territory, it sets a dangerous precedent for the world. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade. Any conflict could disrupt supply chains and raise prices worldwide. Southeast Asian nations watch closely. The outcome will shape their own disputes with China. If the Philippines, backed by the U.S., holds firm, it offers hope to others. But if China prevails, it could intimidate the region into submission. The risk of miscalculation is high, with armed vessels operating in close quarters. A single incident could spiral into a conflict involving nuclear-armed powers. A peaceful, rules-based resolution is not just regional, it's a global necessity.